All right, so I looked at CB1 induced food intake. The first study I found was cannabinoid signaling in the hypothalamus. They looked at 4 major regions. So the arcuate nucleus has cannabinoids that produce hyperphagic effect through 2 routes. So they increase the release of the NPY peptide, which is in the same family as that AGRP that we were talking about, being appetite promoting. What's interesting is it also stimulates those POMC neurons we talked about, but when the cannabinoids are present, POMC actually releases beta endorphins instead of the alpha MSH. So in the presence of cannabinoids, it acts as an opioid signaling ligand to drive eating behavior. The next, paraventricular hypothalamus, kind of shifts the balance of neurotransmitters, specifically GABA and serotonin. So you have CB1 receptor activation promoting the release of GABA, which is seen to stimulate eating, and at the same time it represses the release of serotonin, which is involved in promoting fullness and feeling like satiated. Another hormone that was talked about was the ghrelin hormone, which is interesting. It's kind of the hunger hormone that stimulates hunger, but it requires the endocannabinoid system to function. The lateral hypothalamus has 2 kinds of peptides, the orexin, hypocretin, and then the melanin concentrating hormone. So both are involved in promoting food consumption, and cannabinoids are involved in both, but this is kind of the area of the hypothalamus that more research is needed to kind of better understand the role of CB1 receptors. The last role that I talked about was the ventral medial hypothalamus. So these SF1 neurons are specifically produced in the ventromedial hypothalamus, and then in this region they're required for CB1R expression. So in general, these neurons typically influence glucose and insulin tolerance, but when their CB1 receptors are activated, it decreases their firing, so you get an imbalance in that tolerance. And then something interesting the study mentioned was when they are looking at mice studies, the SF1 CB1, so that neuron with those CB1 receptors, when they knocked that out in mice, it showed a direct increase in leptin expression and sensitivity. Right here is an image that kind of walks through all what they found in the paper. It's part of their publication, so it's pretty interesting. And then the last study I looked at was specifically cannabis use and then eating behaviors. So as we know, THC induces food intake. It actually specifically increases cravings of high fat and high calorie foods. Something else interesting is the mode of administration. So edible administration invokes a stronger and longer lasting increase in appetite, and it's also linked to higher levels of that hunger hormone ghrelin. And then when they were looking at obesity, they actually found that cannabis use is not considered a primary driver of weight gain, and that it's actually associated with lower BMI than non-cannabis users. They know that's not a causal relationship. There's other factors they need to study, but it is something interesting. The only time cannabis was found to be linked to obesity was in the presence of a cannabis use disorder, where they're more likely to lose control over eating, and it's commonly seen with eating disorders. And then something that we all probably know is there's an indirect influence on weight gain, as well as cannabis is negatively associated with physical activity.